another episode of E&Ftv's Bridging the Gap. Today I'm joined by Jack Schafer, revenue exec from Cheval Collection. Jack, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And I'm liking your suntan. Just got back from, was it Gran Canaria or Lanzarote?
Gran Canaria, yeah. So not all work, one has to play sometimes. So went to have a few days just to relax, enjoy the sun, refresh myself. Revenue's a very full-on role, so it's important that you take your time to sort of, recuperate and come back in with a fresh perspective.
So you go over to Gran Canaria for some sun, and ironically, it's been like 28 degrees in London here for the last couple of days. So did you, how was that then? Was it hotter over there than it has been here?
To be fair, I think it's hotter here, minus the breeze. In Gran Canaria, you've got a lovely breeze because you're by the sea, so
Yeah.
throughout the day you don't actually realize how warm it is. But here I'm suffering, I think, with the humidity. It's very hot. I've got my fan on in the house, but yeah, um, definitely lovely weather here as well.
Talking about wind over in the Canary Islands, my mum's over there now, and I booked her a boat trip, dolphin watching, that kind of thing. And I got a message yesterday from the guy that does the boat trip saying we've had to cancel it because the wind's too bad to sail the boat. So it is quite windy over there, apparently.
Yes, definitely, and it's much needed. Unfortunately for your mother, she was probably looking forward to her trip, but for everyone else, I'm sure they're very much appreciating the nice cool breeze.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's crack on. So I'd like to start by asking five quick-fire questions to get the audience to get to know you a little better. I've been quite kind to you this morning, so these are fairly easy, but let's start with favorite emoji.
Oh, I think it has to be a smile, the big smile. I try to include them as much as I possibly can. You never know when you're communicating with various teams how someone else's day's going. So if you can
Yeah,
always push over a little bit of your charm, then it's always beneficial. So definitely the big smiley face is my favorite.
love it. Tea or coffee?
Tea only. Do not drink coffee. Don't even like the smell of
Ooh.
it. I'm actually drinking a lovely cup of tea here. And to be honest with you, two tea bags as well, if I can get away with it. A nice strong cup of tea, definitely.
Sugar?
Two sugars, always.
Two sugars, two tea bags. You're a maverick.
Yes. And sometimes it can be 4 cups before lunchtime working. So yeah, I do enjoy my tea.
Texting or talking?
Oh, so I am quite old-fashioned. I do prefer to talk. Definitely, I think you can collaborate a lot better. You can feed off of each other. It's often, text can sometimes be a little bit like you're pushing your opinion across, whereas when you have a conversation with people, you have the ability to collaborate and, listen to each other's views. Albeit sometimes, if you're having a transactional encounter, then perhaps text is can be useful, but more than likely, I prefer to pick up the phone.
What a world we live in where I was thinking actually the other day about this, and if I get a call these days from anyone under the age of 60, I automatically think something terrible's happened. If a friend calls me, I'm like, a phone call? What's happened? It's just, everyone's in so many WhatsApp groups and texts and emails and social media kind of contacts. It's just so strange to, whereas I'm older than you, but if I go back 20 years, it was very much, yeah, it was pretty much phone calls all the way. How times have changed.
Definitely. I think even with the majority of my friends, it is often, social media contacts or, WhatsApp. It is definitely important, I think, to pick up the phone from time to time. With me, I generally say, if you send me a message, you might wait a few days for a reply, but if you need me urgently, then call me, if it's something important. So definitely, I try to be a bit more responsive to phone calls than messaging.
Fantastic. Vindaloo or Korma?
Or it would have to be probably a korma, but my favorite food would be Thai or Chinese food for sure.
Ah, brilliant. I love Thai food and Chinese food. So you're not a spice fan then?
I like spice, but not spicy. Definitely has to have some flavor in there as well.
Plans for the bank holiday weekend?
I am actually working tomorrow, so I'm one of us covers in my in my role now, one of us will cover the whole collection on a weekend. So tomorrow, that's me, just like monitoring the overbooking levels across our collection, and some rates as well if there's anything that needs to be changed. And then the rest of the weekend, I will be enjoying this wonderful sunshine. I've made some plans on Monday to take my grandparents out for some food, actually. They looked after the dog when I was in Gran Canaria, so this is my thank you treat to them. I'm going to take them out for a roast dinner or something on Monday. So yeah, and then relaxing and then straight back into the swing of it on Tuesday.
Beers are in the fridge.
Beers are in the fridge for today, yes, most definitely.
And you'll be able to take it easy if you're working tomorrow because Liz and Jeremy will be not there. You'll be able to, yeah, drink your tea with your two tea bags and two sugars, take it easy, keep things ticking
I have a whole
over.
list of things for tomorrow. I will be kept very busy. I have lots of things to do.
I knew you were going to say that, but I know you're a busy guy, and thank you for joining me. I've been wanting to get you on the show for quite a while, and the other day I just thought, you know what, I'm going to get in touch with Jack and just find out kind of how it's going. So um, we'll go through this in more detail throughout the show, but just as an opener, tell us a little bit about your career so far.
Sure. I mean, I entered into the hotel industry as an adult after previously working in retail, and just sort of finding that I wanted something that challenged me more, that I could sort of put my mark on. And I love travel. I'm a big traveler myself in my personal life. I've been to like I think 36 countries now I've been to. So I
Wow.
sort of looked at the two and thought, how can I entwine this into my passion, which is to travel? So there's, the aviation sector, which was something I considered. But in terms of like growth and being able to develop a career from this, I found that for me, hotel industry was the best thing to do. So I entered during COVID times and was operational, a duty manager and front office in a central London property. It really taught me like the foundations of how a hotel works, back of house, how it's managed, how it's run, the guest process. From there, I entered into reservations, which was something that was obviously very passionate with me booking lots of holidays. I'm very keen on the best possible experience for our guests. You want to be made to feel special. You're staying somewhere, it can be for a wealth of reasons, but I believe in a real strong level of service for guests. And so I'm actually started with the Dorchester and their reservations team. And I had the pleasure of looking after the Beverly Hills Hotel in Los Angeles. So this for me was a real big going from, sort of front office manager in a small property in London to looking after one of the big boys on the market, if you like. And from there, I developed to work for Cafe Royal, which is what on the actual property based within the property. So I could see the operational side. I would have time to interact with guests, like the show arounds and that side of the business as well. And then after that, we had the Raffles Hotel open in London, and I knew straight away that this was where I wanted to be. I said when I first heard of it, the wealth of history that the brand has, particularly
Mm.
in the Singapore, with the original Raffles Hotel. So I targeted their reservations team and was successful as part of their pre-opening team. And I mean, I would stress to anybody in this career, if you have an opportunity to be part of a pre-opening team, take it. It was one of the most interesting things I'd ever done. You're exposed to so many different departments, so many people. There's so much collaboration that goes on. I was from, one day dealing with reservations to the next day helping out interviewing people for, a chef job on, the initial interview at the open day stage. The number of site visits and travel agents, and this really taught me, I think, how not just the hotel guest staying in room side operates, but the whole background of, events, the F&B side, how this works. Um, and yes, that was me sort of in the reservation side, where often you're controlling rates, you're implementing other people's ideas essentially. You can own the experience that you give the guests. It's down to you how much. of an effort you put into an experience. There's obviously LQA standards, and you're judged on these things. For me, I was ready for the next step, which is taking accountability for looking at I can price this, I can look at different markets, I can deal with the relationship side with the travel agents and the sales side. And this was where I took my step into revenue with the Cheval Collection, and where I am now.
Fantastic. And a fascinating kind of career so far, coming up through from duty manager to reservations and now on to revenue. Just looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I wasn't aware, but it was Premier Inn initially, wasn't it? So quite a big jump from, Premier Inn to luxury. Talk us through that a little bit.
So actually, I was with Hub by Premier Inn. So this is their upmarket version. It's based upon like a concept of smaller properties with just the basic necessities of what's needed. We were based just next to Cannon Street Station, so a very transient business traveller. Your sort of minimal sort of contact with the guests. They want their room to be at the arrival. They don't need tons of interaction with the guest side. So this was a very fast-paced business where each day you may be turning over 70% of the rooms. So it's very there was times where I was making and changing beds, and something I'm not
Mm.
afraid to do now if needed, and there's an operational need. We'll get stuck in with this. Um, so for me, it was a completely different step to go into the world of luxury. Um, Best move I've ever made. You really are working at the highest levels of the service. You're looking for things, even when you're speaking with the guests and they're coming with their family, you're trying to look for little details like what are the children into, what sort of things they're doing. And then we really will try and follow through with that into, it could be so much as an amenity. Let's say, they're coming to Harry Potter World, we would take as much information on the bookings and then we would see it through to the end process. So, we could organize to have cookies made, something silly as that, in Harry Potter shape, and we would actually really connect with our guests on this level. Um, One saying that I absolutely love is that you arrive as a guest, you leave as a friend, and you return as family. So, and a brand, in the five-star world that really will support this concept and want to deliver the best standards, it's fantastic and amazing when you have when you see what your picture and your vision come to life. It's really is rewarding.
Did you always harbour ambitions to work in the luxury market?
I think I always wanted to definitely, yeah, I wanted to work at the highest level, the higher level of the hotel industry. I think having a portfolio of hotels as well that's not just based within one location, but it's based on, my current collection, the Cheval Collection. We have properties in London, Edinburgh, Dubai, and to work on these different markets, there's obviously different dynamic to the guests. There's different cultural diversities that you have to take into mind. But it really is rewarding and interesting. I mean, in a moment now, my afternoon is going to be spent building a new rate for one of our properties in Dubai. This morning I was troubleshooting an issue in a London property. So it really is good to have that dynamic, and no day is ever the same. You will never be bored in this role. There's always something that you can look at or analyze. And no viewpoint is ever taken, anything that you can ever spot and you bring up, it's always listened to, and there's always a constructive conversation that comes from it. So
I think whenever we've spoken, your passion for revenue management has come across quite clearly to me. Where did that begin? So obviously you came from ops at Premier Inn and then through reservations. When did you start getting or start thinking that revenue management could be a career for you?
I think for me, so when I was in reservations, I would have quite a high conversion rate, and I would actively, follow up on all of my bookings or, requests I had. But often I would, approach my a director of revenue and say, look, I had this inquiry, I've offered this. It hasn't managed to convert. I feel that if we offered this additionally, this could work. And having my a supportive revenue director that would often, say, yeah, this sounds great, let's do this, or sometimes let's meet in the middle, maybe not this much, but let's go back and offer this. And then, following through and having the bookings being made, and then, the reward that comes from that in yourself, oh, I've done really well. I've managed to get a booking for the property. You're a valued member of the team. And then sort of understanding the side of like, your ADR, your RevPAR, the bigger picture of revenue. I can't discount offer 10% off for this reason, and looking at the bigger pictures around this. And then for me, I think the competitive side of this. So, if you have a comp set where you look at similar hotels to you, but often making the actual spot decisions on the day, I could be looking at a date in 2 months' time and quickly pricing and having to make a spot decision. Do I price higher? Do I price lower? The constant decision making and trying to, in your head justify the reasoning behind it. Along with the next day when you look at the pickup or the lack of pickup, and then you can reassess your decision. So it's always a very dynamic mindset. Each day I try a different strategy. Um, when things don't work, you learn from them, and when they do work, it's a fantastic feeling.
Would you credit a relationship with director of revenue in your reservation positions, working kind of closely with revenue to bringing out that kind of revenue management side of you and that piquing that interest in revenue management, would you say?
Definitely. I think the two departments are very much aligned. I think one of my, things I'm very passionate about is our reservations team within Cheval. I like to have a very close working relationship with them. If there's ever something they need, I want them to reach out to me. They feed off inquiries with me before sending them out. And when they convert bookings, you can see the smile on their face. They're very happy, particularly when we've worked together, that they want to impress people in reservations are often at the start of their commercial careers and want to grow. And I think from that the best background to take is to start in reservations where you will learn the basics and of the commercial side, how the relationships work, how the OTAs and the travel agents work. um, it definitely is the best career path to take if you want to get into revenue for sure.
Let me give you a bit of an insight into when you were recruited. You may or may not know this, or you may know part of it, but we were obviously commissioned to recruit for your position, and um, Cheval Collection got down to the point where they had a couple of strong candidates that they were interested in to maybe make an offer, and you came into the process quite late through Edwards and Finn. And I remember having a conversation with Jeremy, who'd not been there too long then in head of revenue, and he said, and I said, look, I've got this guy that I spoke to, and I think he'd be really good for the job. Here's his kind of work history. But I said one thing that kind of blew me away about him when I spoke to him was his soft skills, communication, listening. I said it's kind of over and above what I've experienced when I've been talking to people for this regarding this position previously. And Jeremy said, oh, I don't know. It's late in the process now. I'm probably just going to make a decision. And I said, look, just give him 10 minutes. Just have a 10-minute chat with him. If it's a no-go, that's fine. But it might just be, the person you've been looking for. And that's kind of how it came about. And Jeremy was of the same opinion as I was when I spoke to you. How have those soft skills that you're obviously so au fait with, you're so adept at communication, how has that kind of helped you throughout your career and into your first revenue management position?
To be fair, that's a really, really good question. So I think when I, took on this, when I was recruited for this role, there was some apprehension about perhaps my lack of experience in the revenue side, and
Yeah.
perhaps candidates with stronger skills in this side. It really was the personal connection and how I was able to articulate myself, and as you said, the connection that I made. Jeremy, and I was upfront and honest and said, I'm not the most experienced person in revenue. There's lots of systems. I've used some of them, and I was very honest about my level of knowledge with the systems. And we met, and Jeremy, even said to me that he could see himself in me a lot. There was a little spark in me that he saw in himself. And he and Liz as well, they both, took a leap of faith in, taking me on for the role. And I am 5 months later, I've passed my probation with them. They both actually have said to me that when we first took you on, we didn't know with your experience, but you've, shone through what was expected. I think the key thing is, and it's about how you portray yourself, the persona you give off. One very important thing I think is to show that you're passionate. You have to be passionate as well, but you must have your passion show. This must be in everything. If you're speaking with a reception colleague, something on the phone, you have to always have that level of, confidence, but also you're passionate. You want the correct thing for guests. And I think as well, spending time to really understand your product. There was lots of, when I was in the interview process, I was looking at YouTube videos for some of the systems that what I, the words that have been said from on the job description, you'll be using this system. One of them, one or two, I was like, never heard of this. So, rather than just sitting and doing nothing, I took to YouTube and, online and speaking to my other revenue colleagues that I'm friends with in other companies. So that when I had the interview, although, I didn't know the system, I was able to speak about the concept of it and what this was used for. I think one of the main things is showing that you've got the willingness and the drive. It wasn't easy, to start with. It was it was a tough few weeks. I even said to Jeremy once or twice, a few things happened, and I really in my head was like, oh my God, like what do I do? I've tried everything. This is really tedious, and you have to stop and just take a deep breath and think, you know what? Let's go and have a quick walk around the block or whatever, or just go and speak to a colleague about something unrelated. Distract your mind, come back. And then to solve the issue at the end, the rewarding feeling from that, it was really like, this an hour ago, you was umming and ahhing, thinking, this is so difficult, and now you understand it. I think never giving up when something is challenging, and utilizing knowing your levels, sorry, knowing where you can go for information. You've got your revenue team, you've got your account managers, you've got your OTA. So initially making the connections, but once you have the connections and working relationships, for a number of the OTA are managers. I just pick up my phone now and I can give them a call, and it's very informal. But it takes time to develop these relationships. And once people can see that you work hard and that your results show, people have faith in you, then you'll go very far.
Just throughout what you were saying, so we've got their communication, listening, ability to ask for help, also resilience. Would you say that they've been kind of I think they've come from your working in different places within reservations, coming up through operations. Did you find that those skills were refined through that kind of process?
Definitely. I think fear of, when you're on the phone with a guest, forgetting something that was mentioned on the phone, or, attention to detail is extremely important.
Mm.
So I think that the skills were developed through there. Additionally, coming into revenue, into my first role, there is a feeling inside that, I want to prove that I am good at this, not just proving to yourself, but the team. So you really will find the drive, sometimes in the evening, you may have to sign on for an hour because you want to, not because you're expected to, but because you want to look into something or you want to implement something different. I think definitely having that drive to want to succeed. I don't just want to come into this role. I want to come in and I want to thrive in this role. I want to really be known as a person that can achieve results. Is something that I think you definitely will have if you push yourself up through the ranks, and learn what your way through the industry.
Would you say that coming up through reservations is the best way to approach a revenue management position then, that being said?
Yeah, so I mean, some people will come up from a sales route where you're developing sales relationships, meeting with companies, maybe negotiating corporate rates with them. This is good for like your people skills and how you articulate, but I think really reservations, you are the police of the reservation system. Everything comes through you. You will be doing checks, arrival checks. You'll be doing departure checks. You will know the systems inside and out. You may not know how to implement things, in the background, which is where the revenue side comes in, the rate building, the rate loading, the mapping side. But it definitely builds your foundation skills to be able to do this. One of the big things in the revenue side is the distribution side. So, rate building, mapping. This is something that I have had to have learned. I'm, still learning this now. There's no such thing as a, worksheet or follow this presentation and you will learn how to map. It's very much an ongoing thing. You'll learn from your colleagues, you'll watch other people and they'll show you, but then you can never learn it all. There's always things that pop up, and you have to be dynamic and able to troubleshoot these things. If a connection is lost, you may be perhaps not selling, on a particular channel. Um, which isn't immediately obvious. However, in the background, your production can suffer from this. So it's all of what was about the bigger picture and making sure that you have eyes everywhere and that you um, are able to spot issues before they become, risks, sorry, before they become an issue.
And how difficult have you found learning those technical aspects of the job, the analytical? using the systems, the distribution. Has that been a steep learning curve, or were you exposed enough as a reservationist for it to be, a little bit more seamless than it would have been?
Luckily for me, in my previous role, I was leading the reservations team in my previous property, and we didn't have anybody who looked after the distribution side or anything. So I was exposed to this side, so your basic distribution, rate loading, troubleshooting. We was distributing a static rate, so there wasn't any sort of decisions made about where we price. It was just static pricing. So this was where I learned sort of like a basic understanding of how distribution works. You build a rate, you map the rate, you distribute the rate, and the oxys, etc. But then now coming into Cheval, it really has been it's been really fun, as I said, but sometimes challenging. There's a lot when you've worked hard all day on a rate and there's something that's just not working, and you really have to try and work it out. And it can be the smallest little thing that, a box that's not ticked somewhere. And it can affect, the rate not showing. I've had times where I've broken the website and, the whole property's been off sale for a whole year. As has Jeremy as well. I'm sure he probably will be laughing if he's watching this. And then learning, how to solve this, what I need to do. And often it's troubleshooting. You can resend your restrictions, you can resend your inventory. And often it's just a troubleshooting thing. It becomes rewarding when issues happen and I think I can solve it like this, and you obviously follow through and it works. Then is when it becomes rewarding. When you start to learn how to solve issues the first time, then it definitely becomes a very rewarding role.
Did you have any like working knowledge of Microsoft Excel or Power BI or Tableau prior to starting, and do you use those tools in your role now?
So I actually have a GCSE in statistics, which I did in year 10 of school. So I did have a little bit of an advantage in using Excel. With that being said, I've only ever used it in, basic functions or in my working history, not to the level that I'm using it, the software now. Again, I was very upfront and honest with them and said that, I have this level, and if there was some training offered, if I wanted to have a training course with it. Luckily for me, at the same time, we have a data analyst who was recruited, who works directly within my team. And he is absolutely amazing. Anything that I need help with. To be honest with you, nowadays it's less often that I will go for support from him, but anything I need support-wise, he's available. He doesn't just do it for you. He will come on Teams with me for 10 minutes and he will show me how to do it. And the next time when I need to do it, I don't call him because I know. So it really does work well. With that being said, I would say though, anyone who is looking to develop into revenue that doesn't have, an advanced level of Excel, it definitely is beneficial to try and have an understanding of this. There is plenty of videos on YouTube and Instagram, Excel in an hour. There's a number of things that I took prior, just watching myself with a notepad pad and my laptop out next to me prior to starting this role. This was extremely beneficial to me and a refresh of what's needed. If you want to have answers to data or you want to really look into data, it's beneficial to you to have the ability to know how to um, not just interpret the data, but know how to manipulate the data with Excel to extort exactly what you're looking for.
And I was saying the same. I was guest lecturing at University of West London earlier this week, and one of the points I mentioned is that the universities, the hospitality universities, don't necessarily teach Excel. So really, it's a golden age of free learning, isn't it? You can go on to, you can sign up for LinkedIn Learning or Udemy, or even do it for free, just like you did on YouTube. Um, and it's up to them, really, the students that are looking to get into revenue management, to go away and kind of upskill if they feel that their, level of Excel is not kind of where it should be to take on an analyst or exec role. That's one of the key things that I kind of wanted to get across. You've obviously had some background with statistics, and that's probably eased the way for you a little bit. Um, what's next for you, Jack? What's next? I mean, you've only been at Cheval Collection for 6 months, but where do you see your future?
So, as I said, when I took this role, I was taken on as a revenue executive, and I think my expectation was more that I would be supporting the, revenue managers of properties. It
Yeah,
wasn't that at all. It was, straight away, these are your two properties that you look after, and I will be taking on a third property very shortly with Cheval, which
brilliant.
I'm looking forward to as well. It's a bigger property. Um, for me, I definitely will not be moving from the revenue world for now. I love what I do. I love being a revenue manager and having, my properties, the accountability, um, the level of that sometimes you're working at. I had a few meetings last week with the managing director where, there's questions being asked around performance and you're being asked directly and you're having to give answers to. This isn't somewhere that a level that I've worked at previously before, where you're directly in a Teams meeting with someone so high within the business. But it's definitely given me a real hunger for it. When I go
Mm.
back to that next meeting, I'm going to have my results. I'm going to exceed what was expected. Um, I think I definitely would like to explore a GM route as I progress. My long-term goal would be to be a GM of a property. I like the idea of managing a product and a team, to motivate the team to deliver well. But certainly for now, I would like to see myself as a director of revenue for a property or collection. Um, as I'm learning and ready, I definitely for the next few years I'm loving what I'm doing here. Um, I think you need to stay for a few years to be able to make a mark and to the bigger picture. At the moment now, you're as much as you're impacting now, the booking window's been open for a year. So the previous person in your role, you have some of their work as well as yours. I look forward to when it's like 100% a year and it's been me the full year and I price full for the property. But it's something that I want to develop within Cheval, for sure.
I think you'll go far. And I've always said it since we first spoke. So I look forward to seeing you as Director of Revenue, Commercial Director, GM maybe in the future, although you'd be a big loss to revenue management. But I think those kind of skills will, whatever you choose to do, will serve you well throughout your career.
Thank you.
But listen, I better let you. You've got so much to do this afternoon before you open your first beer at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So I better let you crack on with your day. But thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed the chat, and I'm sure everyone watching has as well.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you this afternoon, and I wish everyone luck with their future endeavors, and look forward to seeing them all in the future.
Thanks, Jack. That's all we've got time for this week. Like and share the show because it helps us attract really cool guests like Jack. See you next week.
Here we go!